Welcome to lesson 5.5 of your Dynamic Small Business Search course. In the last lesson, we wrote a second draft of our capability narrative using our competitors' narrative as examples. In this lesson, we're going to write our final version of the capability narrative. This will be the one that we put into DSBS and then to SAM. I know this is a lot, so anytime you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed, just go ahead and pause and rewind the video as needed to watch it again, or pause the video so you can see exactly what I'm writing. You can have all these slides. They're available to you throughout the course, and so you can print them out if that helps you so you can see what I'm writing. Feel free to use any phrasing that I put in. There's 300,000 of us. You're not going to really compete against me at all, so feel free to use that. My intention is actually to give you 5 or 10 examples down the road, but for now you get to use SV MacPacks as I move forward. So remember, pause the video and rewind if you need to. It's really important to see how I go from a blank page to a completed capabilities narrative. And this last lesson here on writing the capabilities narrative, that's where you get to see it all kind of come together. So let's go ahead and get started by looking at the next few slides. Okay, so the first thing we had was the opening sentence that I wanted to use. And there's the original sentence I wrote. You remember that from the previous lessons. And then based on my competitive analysis, I came up with a better opening sentence. I liked switching the SV MacPack into the middle, etc. And then I ended up with this. This is my third line here, where you see it at the bottom, that I'm saying, led by an experienced and proven executive in the federal market and a team with over 100 years of professional experience, SV MacPack provides 3 key services to federal agency customers: training, records management, and scanning. Got a little out of order there, but you know what I'm saying. And so I think what I did as I went through here and I looked at this and I tried to improve based on some of the words I'm seeing, is I added in really, I wanted to start with that experienced. And so the minute somebody's reading this, a buyer's reading this, the very first part of my capability narrative starts with led by an experienced, proven executive. In their head, they're just going to say, oh, okay, these guys know what they're doing, which is exactly what I want them to think. I am an experienced and proven executive, but if I don't tell them that, then they won't know it, because SV MacPack is not proven. Neil McDonnell and my team, we're proven. So that one kind of came out pretty good for the opening. So there's my final sentence for the opening, and you'll see a little farther when we put it all together. The next one that we had was related to the first sentence that I did, or first mini paragraph here. And so that was the original one on training. Then doing the competitive analysis, I came up with this huge paragraph. A lot of stuff, good stuff. I liked it, but I knew instinctively that it was too big. And we went through this on a previous lesson. So then in my final review and creating the final version of this capability narrative for this paragraph, I refined it down into: we design, develop, and deliver training courses that are highly effective at delivering the necessary information while maintaining a high level of student participation. Customers can access on-site, off-site options that are either instructor-led or web-based to include remote students' needs. And in here, I took out some of the things that are keyword type stuff, knowledge-based articles, videos, things like that I took out, because a lot of that is said or implied with things like on-site, off-site, instructor-led or web-based. You see how I'm doing that kind of comparison? And basically, I'm saying basically you can do it from one end to the other end of the spectrum. And the last thing I really ended with was remote student needs and students' need. And that's really important to me, that word remote, that I have it in there, because I'm trying to communicate to the government that not everybody you have is on a military base at this location or in a DC headquarters. Your, this training students, or in your case, your employees, are spread across the globe, often cases like the State Department, if I support them. And so this remote students need helps them kind of quickly put in their head, I get it. These guys can do training courses in any way that we want, and they can deal with folks remotely. And so that's what I was trying to get across in that final paragraph you see here in the box at the bottom. So let's go to the next one, which is the scanning and the records management. So in this case, you'll see, and this slide will get a little crowded, but that's okay because I want you to see the process. In here, the reason I have these two on the same page, and you'll see when I show you the final version, but what I ended up doing is beginning to combine them. So I started off with these two different gray boxes, which were my mini paragraphs based on the keyword scanning and records management. And then competitive analysis gave me two additional paragraphs where I really expanded the scanning in this first paragraph. And then led by NARA right here is the next paragraph for the records management one. So I expanded it. I got some good stuff. That's where I put in the DoD 5015.2, which you remember from the previous one. But as I'm trying to keep to 1,000 characters, I realize I got too much text, right? And so how do I refine this down to a more concise, clear message? Let me click this, and here you see what I ended up with. We help agencies increase access to and reduce storage costs by scanning and converting paper files, records into digital format for centralized cloud storage. Together with our document management services, customers can reliably plan for electronic storage and retention of these digitized files, including final disposition. That word's really important there, right? Final disposition. That's telling the government, I know what needs to happen with these paper records. Led by a NARA certified records manager, we help our customers maintain compliance with internal records management policies. So, for example, in the Air Force or in DoD, as well as NARA OMB regulations. So now I'm saying the whole federal government regulation level, while also applying, in this case, and DoD 5015.2 guidelines. And so this blue box at the bottom, you see that I kind of just blended them together. I realized that scanning was important, but what I was trying to drive my customer to was records management. And scanning is just one part of records management. I'm not really trying to just scan for no reason, because if I wasn't going to turn those electronic or those paper records, those paper files into records, if I wasn't going to do that, then what's the purpose of even scanning it, right? So I know that by scanning in the federal government, the goal is to turn it into records and then destroy it or send it to NARA at a certain point, and that's what I try to communicate here. So again, when you look at this, you see me going through, grabbing a couple of initial keywords, scanning and records management paragraphs, doing the competitive research, which is in the middle, ended up getting me this final paragraph that combines scanning and records management. So let's look at what does it all look like together. A lot of words here, and you don't have to worry about reading it completely at the moment because this is what we just reviewed. But here is what I'm picking up. It's 1,000 characters or less, and it's basically right around 1,000 characters, right? And this is what I put into DSBS as my capability narrative, and it begins really strongly, led by a proven executive, right? It ends with what I'm hoping to be really strong NARA OMB regulations, DoD 5015.2 guidelines. This is something that's different than in DSBS than my competitors. I know that not many people who do what I do, because there's a lot of us who can do this, right? I told you there's 1,000 companies for each one of us that does what we do. But if they don't communicate to the government that they do this, then they're not going to get a chance to sell to the government. With me, because I'm using the keywords in my keyword section as well as other words like DoD 5015.2 guidelines here, that'll drive the buyer to me as a seller. So there's a really good capability narrative. We've gone through that module. I did want to show you kind of a bonus section here on the next one. And I had a lot of extra content that I had from when I was doing the capabilities narrative, and you saw this as I had a lot of things like Microsoft Most Valuable Professional, etc. I already told you below the capabilities narrative, as you're looking at your DSBS profile, there's a separate field in there called Special Equipment and Materials. I really have none of those, but that field is 1,000 characters, and it's full text search when any buyer comes in and searches on DSBS for something you do. So all the things I didn't put in my capabilities narrative, I just went down here and dumped it into the special equipment narrative, and it's something you can do as well. And so that's great. Make sure you take advantage of this. So when you're thinking about your capabilities narrative, you want to really get a good tight 1,000 characters and then take anything extra and put it in your special equipment if it's well written, just like the part that's above. And you'll be great. This will be an excellent capabilities narrative that you'll be proud to have out there, but more importantly, the government buyer will find. Okay, so that wraps up lesson 5.5. I'm going to close this, and I'll see you at the next lesson.